This is the Flavor of Leadership podcast. I am your host, Clint Hoops. Together, we explore the unique blend of leadership wisdom that helps top leaders consistently achieve work goals, develop personally, and find fulfillment with family. Let's get started. Welcome back. This is episode number 11. Today, we're going to be talking about exercise, specifically exercise that you enjoy. And to talk about this today, I have brought back, once again, Tyler Hoops, the white-collar cyclist, who also happens to be my brother. Welcome back, Tyler.
Hey, thank you. I'm excited. I wasn't sure if you invited me because I need to exercise more or just because I've messed up enough in trying different exercise programs. So anyway, regardless, excited to be here.
Probably both of those, we love it because Tyler, he has had many different types of exercise that he's done over the years. He's been kind of my go-to person that I call when I'm wondering about something or what to do, and it works out nicely. So Tyler, first of the year, lots of people right now are creating goals and have New Year's resolutions. Many of them are around exercise and health. Is that true for you at all?
Yes. In fact, one of my New Year's resolutions was to keep a clean desk. And so yesterday, my wife helped me clean off my desk and connected to goals. I actually found my 2020 goals under a stack of papers. And I don't know if I looked at them since the day we did them last year, probably, the first week of January. And I did have exercise goals then, and I intend to again this year. I probably need to keep them in front of me somehow. But anyway, yes, I intend to make goals this year and hopefully build off of what I did or didn't do in 2020.
I love it. I know a lot of that's true for me as well. I do like to have goals in different parts of my life, and health is a huge part of my life, including exercise. And one of the things that I hear people say sometimes when they're setting their New Year's resolutions, and specifically ones around health, I know people have said, I want to exercise and things, but I just hate running, and it's funny. The first thing I think is, well, then don't run. There's lots of things to do for exercise that don't involve running. And so, Tyler, one of his big things, right, being the white collar cyclist, is cycling of all types. So Tyler, how did that happen for you?
I started cycling. Well, let's put it this way. 7th grade, I remember specifically, I was into biking all the time, but it was a necessity. That's what got me to school. It's how I got to my friend's house. And so I enjoyed it. And I remember just using it as, my vehicle for transportation, but also just having a good time because we figured out mountain bike trails and started trying new things out, jumps and whatnot. I kind of hung up the bike and didn't ever touch it again after I got my driver's license. And it wasn't probably till 10 years later that I got into cycling because my brother-in-law reintroduced it to me, and it was a popular thing he was doing. And frankly, that's why I got into it. And I think when I look at most of my hobbies throughout my life, it's typically because an associate or a friend or family member, they're the ones that introduced me because it was kind of becoming a popular thing to do. And for me, not just because I wanted to stay in shape, but it was truly about finding new friends and that social aspect of it.
Yeah, the social aspect is huge. I know for me, a number of years ago, I used to play basketball in the mornings, for a little while, and it was great. It was a ton of fun. I loved it. But then I don't remember exactly what happened. Probably the friend that invited me originally stopped coming, and then I stopped coming, and then before I knew it, I wasn't playing basketball anymore. And it's crazy how that happens. And really, the reason I mountain bike and cycle right now really is because of Tyler. It's someone close to me that loves it. And so I think, man, he loves it so much, I should too. And so I've mountain biked for a number of years as well. And it's been one of the types of exercise that I enjoy more than just about any other as well.
Awesome. But here's the thing I would say, and I can't necessarily speak for every form of exercise, and there's probably groups that kind of do want to keep their group specific to certain people. But as for me and most of my friends that I see us out riding, we're always excited when somebody new comes and joins us. But typically what they usually say is, I'm not I'm not to your guys' level yet. Let me ride by myself for a while and then I'll see if I join you. It never works because they just don't ever find the joy in it. They don't learn about the sport or the form of exercise. And again, this doesn't have to be cycling, but I think that's a big component of it too, is when you're first starting or kind of picking up a new hobby, don't be scared to reach out to others who are already doing it And if you have to introduce yourself or invite yourself, if they don't want you there, they'll tell you. But for the most part, people are very open to having new people come. So
Yeah.
anyway, first words of advice.
I love that. Well, I know that in my life, if I ever have anyone that is new to mountain biking or wants to mountain bike, I always direct them towards Tyler. And Tyler is always so happy to be like, "Oh yeah, of course. I'll help you buy a new bike. I'll help you do what you need to do." And it's really fun. I think the takeaway is find people that are doing what you want to do or think you want to do and talk to them. And most people really are helpful and want to help people succeed as well.
Yep, I'm confident in that. My son, who's just picking up tennis, he's all excited and starting to kind of network with friends. And it's funny how quickly he's picked that up and people are inviting him. So I see it in all sorts of areas of life.
He probably finds people that he didn't even know played, I'm guessing. I know that's happened with me with mountain biking. All of a sudden I show up, I'm like, "Hey, I didn't even know that you mountain bike." And it's kind of fun seeing people on the trail. Okay, so another takeaway, if you don't like running, it's okay. Don't run. If you don't like cycling, don't cycle, don't ride a bike. There are other things that you can do that can help you get the exercise you need. I mean, this, for the record, this podcast is not going to be about the benefits of exercise in general. I think that topic is probably beat to death in the world because we all know that we're supposed to, and yet most of us still ignore it anyway. I know we all do it one time or another because it's hard, but there are a lot of different benefits. So we will talk about some of the benefits on improving your mind and helping you in your work life and personal life, the benefits of exercise in that way. But I think one of the keys are, and I think it's what we're already talking about is, man, if exercise is not fun in some way, you're not going to do it. So Tyler, what do you do to help make exercise fun for you? I mean, you cycle, but is cycling always fun?
No, and if it's not fun, then I've sometimes said, "Hey, I've got to take a week or 2 off." I just don't do it, and I pick other forms of exercise that gets my heart rate up. For me, the ultimate benefit is just the mental clarity and just the feeling of, those endorphins. That probably is what I'm hooked on the most. It just so happens to be that I do it on a bike most of the time. But yeah, that's how I feel about it.
I like it. I like it. I read a book a few years ago. The book is called Spark: The Revolutionary New Science of Exercise in the Brain, and it's by a man named John J. Ratty, and I'm probably slaughtering his name, but it was a very interesting book, and he actually talks about how exercise can actually change the way our brain processes work and our thought processes. And he actually says this in the book. He says, "It turns out that moving our muscles produces proteins that travel through the bloodstream and into the brain, where they play pivotal roles in the mechanisms of our highest thought processes." And that's a lot of fancy words to say that it's proven that exercise does, in fact, help our thought process, help us think more clearly. I know I have found that, just like Tyler said, he's found that. I have found that in my life. Man, I just think more clearly when I've moved my body and exercised. I like to do it in the morning because I find that it kind of helps me throughout the day. But yeah, it's very interesting. So,
Can
so,
I interject real
oh,
quick?
please do. Yeah,
Just something that building off of that, because I have found the benefit. That's probably why in my work life, whenever I'm with people that I'm leading, is I notice that they're maybe getting sluggish in their job or they're actually finding job dissatisfaction. I will act. I'll kind of go there with it. And again, it's not an interrogation on whether they're keeping their exercise goals, but it's more asking them how is their balance of working hard as well as playing hard, and are they getting some exercise to kind of just get their blood flowing and get their mind off of work. And I found that actually is a real problem sometimes when we're getting stressed, when we find that we're not liking our job. There's typically an imbalance or a lack of focus or attention to this exercise that you're talking about. So, anyway, I just want to throw that out there.
I love it. No, that's a very good point because, one of the things we talk about on this podcast is, a lot of people will say work life balance. And I'm real big on work life harmony, right? Meaning a little less about at different times in life, work will take more time, family will take more time, other parts of our life will take more time. And so there is a harmony that has to take place. And man, when you're out of whack on your exercise, it really impacts the other parts in a big way. And I know I found that to be true in my life.
You know, one of the funny things is one of the most popular shirts I ever had made for my work was one that said "Work hard, play hard." And I gave it out to a number of people that I worked with directly, but all of them had their respective groups that they led. And they ended up taking that same phrase and even the same logo and putting it on their facility and company shirts so that they could share it with their staff. And during that year, you know, they even had, I remember specifically, it stands out in my mind is they did like a plank off at one of the places. And they, in the workplace, they all had goals to see who could do the longest plank. And so they had like 30 or 60 days to be able to build up and do planks. And I think that was just an element of, again, building this culture of work hard, play hard. And it's not a bad thing. We almost feel guilty as adults doing that, but that's the benefit of being an adult is we can work hard and play hard. And if we're not, we're missing out on the fun part of being an adult.
So true. So true. I love those kind of things at work, having your work help support the healthy habits, right? A number of years ago, I had a group of my managers and we had kind of a special goal system that we did with our managers and they had little goal sprints every 6 months that they had to do. And it was pretty fun because it was part work goals, mostly work goals, but there was an element of a personal goal or two for personal improvement for the person, and they got to choose whatever it is. I did not determine what they did, but I did require that it be, specific and measurable and everything that way. They had to report back that they were doing that, and that actually impacted what they were paid. And so it was kind of a fun thing. They enjoyed it and we enjoyed it. It gave kind of that external accountability. And so I had several employees that actually did health related goals. And so they said, "Hey, I want to run or I want to exercise so many days a week." I had one guy in particular that even said, he's like, "I want to have a defined six pack that you can see after 6 months." I'm like, "Okay, are you sure you don't want to like have some other type of goal?" He's like, "No, that is what I want." And I said, "Okay, let's do it." I said, "But how are you going to measure this?" He said, "I'm going to take a picture." And and so it's like, "All right, let's do it." I mean, this guy, he busted his tail off for 6 months. And I'm telling you, at the end, he had a defined six pack and it was not photoshopped. It was real deal. So I just thought that was pretty fun that he was so motivated to make it happen. And that external accountability really helped him.
That is so cool. And I'm sure during the process, he probably eliminated some unhealthy habits and developed some really good habits. And so, again, life changing by setting a goal and it was work oriented. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Pretty fun. I love it. How else have you seen being able to help benefit employees in the workplace?
You know, one of the ones that I've seen happen, maybe just a couple ideas. One, a lot of companies have gym memberships because as we're talking, I think most companies read the sciences, and we all know a gym membership is something that totally can help employees be more productive and be more sharp for work. The flaw, I think, what happens is when we offer gym memberships with no strings attached. And I hate to be that way, but at the same time, if there is some accountability, then it seems like the gym membership benefit will pay off. One time I had some employees where we were talking and instead of just paying for their gym membership, which could have been fine, we basically said they had to pay for it themselves, then ask for reimbursement each month, and there was a way to measure it that they had gone to the gym at least 10 times. So that if they didn't go 10 times, then they were on the hook for their own gym membership. That in itself made it way more productive for them because they actually got the benefits of going 10 times at least. But then on the flip side, as a company and as an employer, I was way more confident that the benefit we were offering was having an impact on their life. You know, one more, I just thought about one more. One other one that this happened to me when one of my former bosses, he said if we sign up for bike races, or for me it was bike races or running races or whatever type of event that we have to train for, he saw the vision of why it was important. He, instead of saying we'll pay for it and upfront, he said if you send me a picture of yourself with at the finish line completing what your goal was, turn it in, and then I'll reimburse you for your entry for that race. That was way more motivating because I knew when I signed up for the race, it wasn't, oh, my company paid for it. If I get to it, that's good. If not, no skin off my back. I knew for me to get that $120 back for that marathon, I had to complete it and send a picture. Way more fulfilling and just motivating.
I love it. I like that it connected you with your employer as well and with your boss. It gave you that connection as well because he's probably asking about it all the time, right? It gave you kind of that accountability. I mean, not that you have to have the accountability at work in your personal life. I know people sometimes get funny about that, but the reality is, man, it's a perfect person that can just ask and they're paying for it. They're willing to help you. Like that's pretty fun.
And accountability has such a negative connotation sometimes. For this, it was exciting, and frankly, I feel that way because I've actually done that with other employees before, and I love checking in with them, be like, "Hey, how's the training going? Everything's still going well?" And you can see their excitement when they're reporting, "Yes, I'm right on track. That marathon's within my view. I'm going to nail it," and I'm excited, being like, "Well, hey, hurry and get that picture and send it in." I think it creates a camaraderie amongst a team as well as between an employee and employer.
I love it. As you've helped different people over time and seen people exercise that weren't exercising. So, I mean, essentially, as their leader, you're kind of acting like a coach to them, but I mean, a little different way where you're just kind of asking those questions. So, I mean, what do you think if you were a leader and you're listening to this, and I'm sure there's somebody out there that's thinking, man, I know so and so, and they're thinking of someone on their team they probably could benefit from something like this, but how do I bring that up? Do you have any ideas? Have you really done that, or do you offer it to everybody, or I don't know, any thoughts?
It's funny because I have offered it. I've gotten them in front of a group of leaders that I'm with, and said, "Look, this year, anyone that signs up for a race or anyone that signs up for some sort of an event or exercise type event that's benefiting your work life balance, we want to reimburse you. Just turn it in." One facility I know signed up for a softball league, and they ended up submitting the $400, and we're like, "Yeah, we'll pay for it," so nobody had to pay for their softball league entry fees. How you do it with each individual is probably a delicate because some people could be sensitive. I think just because we do care about their well-being, it's okay to ask. Sometimes it might be one of those things that you got to check your relationship a little bit and say, okay, am I in a spot where I can offer up this benefit or challenge them in a way that'll be motivating and not frustrating to have your boss following up on. But I don't know, I didn't really answer that very well, but I personally have done it, and I don't know if there's a right way to do it, but I've done it, and it's typically been received with open arms and positive reception.
So basically, read the employee.
Yep.
I know for me, we've talked earlier in the podcast about the importance of one-on-one meetings with with your leaders, with your employees, having that chance each week to sit down with them and talk with them and allow them to report back on how they're doing. I found that in those conversations, people will open up so much more about different things that are going on at work and even at home. And it helps you see kind of the clear picture of everything that's happening in their lives. And I think there are probably opportunities in those kind of meetings, those kind of settings where it would be totally appropriate to ask some of those questions that might lead them to realize, hey, this might be something that could benefit me as well. Share some examples.
I think you're right on with that, and just thinking about my kids when you were just going through that example, I think a lot of the time when we're in a work environment, it's very similar to a family environment with your kids or with siblings, whichever situation you're in. I think you have to read those as well. If you put yourself in that situation, and if you apply those same principles to your work environment, I think you'll go far.
I like that. Well, speaking of that, since you brought up kids, kids really are ones that can benefit so much from these same things. I know in my life growing up, Tyler and I are obviously brothers, and we grew up in a household, an active household where where our parents wanted to be active, and our dad loved playing sports and wanted to see us be active and encourage that. How have you done that with your kids, Tyler? I know Kason specifically, one of your boys was mountain biking with us this morning and he's awesome. He's so good and he loves it. And now he's playing tennis. How have you helped develop that with your kids?
I think we have to personalize it. Obviously, my first step is always to introduce what I like. Hopefully, some of those things, and typically at least a few of those interests have each child has gleaned onto some of those. But I didn't play soccer that much. I quit like when I was in fifth grade. But I've got a daughter now that's a soccer player. And then I've got a daughter on the drill team in high school. Those are both excellent forms of exercise and getting the benefit that emotionally and just mentally from exercise. And I think just being supportive of that and asking questions. How are you doing? What My daughter had to type up something for her drill team about what she's working on. I didn't know what it was. I asked her to show me it. Show me what you're working on so I can kind of get an idea. And just being involved that way as a parent, I think is will help you be connected.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, staying connected to what they enjoy and helping them find what they enjoy, right? Giving I think exposing them to all of those different types of exercise and different types of sports. And many people don't even think of dance as a sport. And holy cow, you see some of those dancers, that is one of the most intense forms of exercise and sport. I mean, it requires an intense level of stamina and you have to be so strong. And so I think helping our kids be able to be introduced to all these different ways to stay healthy can make all the difference for them.
I think that is exactly what you just said. Introduce to them different ways to stay healthy. I've seen something in our grade schools around here that just says it's like a little logo that says just move. And I think that is really what message we want to give to our kids. Exercise doesn't have to be for for people that are overweight or for people who are already ideal body weight and so it's easy for them. Exercise is just moving, getting our heart rate up, getting the benefits emotionally and mentally. The physical benefits of weight loss hopefully will come. If they don't, that's okay because I think the parts of our body that you can't see, the organs and the mind, those are the beneficiaries of us just moving.
I like that. We hear this all the time, right? People say, well, don't worry about the scale quite so much and don't do this. But gosh, there's a lot of truth to it. It's harder to actually believe that or to do it ourselves. But I know that when we do and you just move, man, you'll feel better. And that's the main goal of all of it, right?
Absolutely. I actually read an article this morning, it's first of the year. It's in KSL News online. And
Yeah, we'll include the link in the show notes so that people can find it.
oh, perfect. 'Kay, it was outstanding. By registered dietitian Brittany Polson, she just talked about actionable goals and really challenged us not to put the goals around a scale number, but a lot of actionable things that we can control. But she had like 11 different recommendations that I thought were outstanding. So, really, I'm glad you're putting a link there because I think it could benefit all of us just to kind of reference that.
Excellent. Excellent. A lot of great things today. To kind of recap a little bit, if you only get one thing from this show today, please just get this. Find something that's fun or motivating to do for exercise. I don't know. Tyler, any other thoughts from that? That's just what keeps coming back to me is don't think that exercise has to be a bunch of, time on the treadmill, time out in the cold weather or the hot weather, or time where you're sitting there just watching the scale. It can be something different and you can feel good and have benefit.
Yeah. I think probably, and this kind of comes from Brittany Polson's article as well, but I think whatever you pick, put some sort of measurable action around it. If it's I want to walk 4 times a week for 30 minutes, then put it there if that's fun for you. But just to say I want to go walking weekly, it's kind of nebulous and it isn't quite as effective. Anyway, that's the only thing I'd add to what you're saying. Pick exercise, pick something that's fun, but somehow measure yourself. We've all got watches that measure our steps. I personally feel like if we can just raise our heart rate, so if you have something that just ensures that you're raising your heart rate, that's important because, to go walking, but maybe your heart rate doesn't quite move up, that potentially you might be with just maybe a little bit more effort, you could be getting a whole lot more benefit out of it. So, just a few things you can measure and then quantify.
And fitness trackers are so cheap these days. I mean, you can get a basic fitness tracker for $20 on amazon.com. I mean, it doesn't have to be some expensive thing to give you that tracking ability.
Yeah, and most of our phones track how many steps we've gone just because they're sitting in our pocket most and it tracks that. So, yep, you're right.
Okay. That's excellent. So find something motivating and fun for you so that you can actually want to continue. And if you're in a position of leadership and you're able to actually help someone else do the same in a great way, man, do that. So, where do we go from here? Find something fun to do and plan it into your day. Our last podcast was actually about planning. And if you don't take the time to plan and schedule what you're going to do, I don't think it's going to happen. I know for me, I have to exercise first thing in the morning or it doesn't happen. And I have to decide beforehand what I'm going to do or it doesn't happen. I've had times where I've said, well, tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up, at 6 a.m. and I'm going to exercise for half an hour. And if I don't decide what I'm going to do before, I'll end up sleeping in. I won't do it. And if you're going to try doing something fun, find some way to set it up beforehand. Any thoughts on that, Tyler?
Nope. Sometimes that's why videos or just committing to a gym or to a friend that you're going to show up at a certain place helps the most because it just kind of builds in someone that you're accountable to. But I like what you said.
I love it. Okay, let's make it happen. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining me on this week's episode of the Flavor of Leadership podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast player. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback for us, you can reach me directly at flavorofleadership.com. Thanks for listening.